We all struggle with doubt and insecurity. My guest today is going to share her story of finding freedom. Amber Haines is a soulful writer, acclaimed blogger, and inspirational woman. In her early years, Amber found temptation that led her down a path of dissatisfaction and life-altering choices. But in her darkest moment, God met Amber and shone a light of freedom, forgiveness, and grace. With heartfelt authenticity, Amber brings readers along her journey with her book, Wild in the Hollow. Amber enjoys life with her 4 sons and husband in Arkansas. Please welcome Amber C. Haines. Hey, Amber, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
So today we're talking about this book that you wrote, Wild in the Hollow. What does that mean, in the hollow? Wild in the Hollow?
Well, okay. I'm from Alabama originally, so
I can tell a little bit.
Yes, you will hear this. And I'm from the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and so at the bottom of the mountain is what we call the hollow. But I will tell you, we didn't say hollow, we said holler, but that just wouldn't make for
holler.
So, but it's also a metaphor for just an empty place that's meant to be filled.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your story, because the book really unpacks your story, doesn't it? And so, where should we start? Were you raised in a Christian home? Was it?
Very much.
Oh, very
much.
What does that mean?
Church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. It was our culture. And very strong youth group. I loved it. I loved my church family. In fact, I wanted more than anything ever to be accepted by the church and to be a church girl in my early days.
Did you feel like you weren't accepted?
I never quite felt like I fit. And I feel like I meet a lot of people like that too, who are like, I'm not quite like these people. I didn't feel like I was gonna make the Jesus cut often.
Wow.
I didn't understand grace. I don't remember it being taught. It was there. We sang about Amazing Grace all the time, but I never understood grace at all. So I compare my upbringing to Eden a little bit because it was beautiful. My childhood is gorgeous. It's pretty where I'm from, and I literally remember following my daddy in the garden, jumping from footprint to footprint, and follow him through the woods. And it's a beautiful thing with my siblings and neighbors. So there came a time when I desired something outside of that, outside of what I knew as home. And like the metaphor of desiring the fruit, I took it. And I ended up like having sex by the time I was 15 and using drugs and drinking and following a pretty cliche path of rebellion, and I became enslaved pretty quickly.
Really?
In that.
It just grabbed you. That whole lifestyle just grabbed you. What attracted you to it? Can you put your finger on it, or it just was there?
Fun.
Okay, fun.
Beauty.
Okay.
I think finding, desiring to be seen, desiring to be heard, desiring to have a fit. I thought I was going to find it outside of the garden.
Yeah.
And so I just went there. And I think that in the church, what I saw back then, and it may have been there, but what I saw was not a place to talk about pain at all. Not a place to be broken. I thought that Christians were well. I thought that they were healed and, you know, they had beautiful sweater sets and
So they were as good inside as they looked outside.
yes, I really thought they have it together, and I'm just not a part of that. I have these desires, and I'm not even allowed to say them out loud because then I'll be out.
Well, you know, it's interesting when you study the Word. It says that the law exasperates sin. That if you're living in a world where everything is about a rule and it's not really grace, like you're talking about, where you're just unconditionally loved, so you're so secure that it just literally begins to cause you to be attracted to sin.
And I was.
Okay.
And I was. And I was good at it. And I did find myself in circles where we could talk about our pain and where we knew we were broken.
See, that's a big issue. A lot of people from the church who won't talk about pain quickly find people in the world who'll talk about their pain all day and be really real and authentic.
That's right.
They just have no answers.
That's right. So, I really held the church up and thought that was the place I was supposed to find my fit. And then I found out that wasn't going to happen and went down a dark path until I became pregnant at 18. And I actually moved from Alabama to Arkansas so I could have an abortion away from my family and so that no one would know.
Right.
And my heart was already so sick and so broken, but physically after my abortion, I did not heal at all.
So tell me about that season, because when you are having more fun, quote unquote, or moving towards the things you desire or whatever religion, your flesh desires or whatever, was it as happy? What was it like in the evenings when you went to bed? What were you experiencing then?
No, I knew by this point, I knew that I didn't want that. I actually desired, when I moved to Arkansas, I signed up to go to a Christian university because I thought they would rub off on me. I really wanted, I wanted the straight and narrow. I just couldn't seem to stop. And what happened was that I continued, even at a Christian university, continued to follow this dark path until I got up one morning with a hangover. And I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize the girl that I saw. And I put my hands to the floor, and I remember the sun was shining in very brightly. It was like yellow on the linoleum floor. And I laid my body out flat, and I prayed for the first time in a long time, not that I would be saved, but that I would die.
Wow.
And I believed with all my heart that I would stop breathing. I believed that I would die. And in that moment, the Spirit came to me, and Jesus told me that He would never love me more than He loved me right at that very minute.
Wow.
Laid
beautiful.
out in the floor. And then I got up and I walked to my Bible and I opened to Romans and I read about grace. And I called my sister and said, "Have you ever heard of this?" She's like, "I know it's amazing," but and I became quite an evangelist. In that split second, my life changed. I didn't know who I was. I had to ask Him, "What do I like?" It was like my taste buds were different. So it's a radical story too, and I know that sometimes that discourages people.
Why?
But I think because they're like, "Well, I don't have this radical, I was saved in the floor moment." I made,
right.
and I love those faithful stories, but it took that for me.
Well, when you were telling me the first part of your story, it was kind of church, people, expectations, packaging, desires, but I didn't hear you say Jesus until you started talking about grace. And is that a big issue? Did you actually really begin to have a relationship once you understood grace?
Oh, yes.
It changes everything.
Oh, yes. I mean, he was in me, but just with me, walking with me. And my thoughts were His. I was transformed.
The traditional church, whichever way, I don't know how to use it because it's different in every country, but wherever religion takes over, which is man's way of trying to have behavior modification, stay good, be good, do it for God, do it for your family, but wherever you've got behavior modification without grace and a relationship, wow, it just does not work, which I think is why so many people your age and all the younger, that there's whole groups that just abandon church because they tried rules, they tried even, because there's toxic love, which is love that you have to earn, and then there's agape love, which is you're laying on the floor, you're messed up, you haven't kept very many rules here.
That's right.
And He shouldn't be pleased with you. He should be displeased with you.
That's right.
And He's telling you, "I've never loved you more. I can't love you any more than I do now." And that's what changed.
And this is why I from the very beginning was like, "Oh, 2 weeks ago I was on drugs," or or I just had I have been very open with my story of brokenness, because that is the very thing that brought me Jesus.
Right.
That was the floor, the linoleum floor is where he met me.
You're talking about reading Romans. There's different verses in Romans that literally say that. They just say, the law is here for those who try to be good, because it'll just break you. It'll just grind you down until you finally realize, Lang, wherever you are, it's only Jesus. It's only by his grace. So what's next? What happened next?
Well, I wish the story, ended there and it's
Fairy
all
tale?
in perfect sense. But that is not the case. I became a believer. I met my husband a month later. 2 months after that, we were engaged.
Whoa.
Very, very much in love. Just goo-goo. Totally crazy. And I married a youth minister. Of all things.
Okay.
So we moved into a mega church where he was a youth minister and worship pastor, and it was an unhealthy place. And that was the place that I thought I was finally going to be wholeheartedly loved and accepted by the church and have my fit. And it did not happen.
Like, what do you mean it didn't happen? What were you expecting from them?
I expected them I desired to get from them what I'm supposed to get from God. It was set up to fail.
Okay.
I had expectations toward the church that were not right.
So it's not like you have this big grind against the church.
No, I love the church.
Okay, we're going to take a break right here. This is going great. And then when we come back, let's start right there with the church. And with this, you just started a marriage and a new job, a new career, and we'll pick up right there when we're back. My guest today is Amber Haines, who wrote this book, Wild in the Hollow. I want to encourage you to get a copy. We'll be right back.
I think that unforgiveness toward the church makes us really, really sick.
We believe Jesus Christ came to give every person on this planet a chance to live with power, passion, and purpose. Through award-winning, world-class TV programs like this and life-giving resources in Spanish, French, Italian, Russian, and Hindi, Spirit Contemporary is changing lives around the world. Considerable expenses are involved, but each person reached is absolutely worth the cost. People are saved, their faith revived, eternities transformed, all because of your support. With your donation today, you will receive today's special resource.
Welcome back. My guest today is Amber Haines, and we were talking when we left about your story and how that now you are a youth pastor's wife in a large church. And I asked you, because you said you weren't receiving from the church what you felt you needed. And so I kind of said, okay, like, is it the church? You said, no, it was you. Talk to me about these desires. What was it you desired?
I just thought that now I'm a believer, now you're going to love me. Now you're going to get me. I'm going to have my fit, and I'm going to step in here and really work out my giftings and be fully accepted. And it wasn't so. It was kind of like the church had always been, people. And
Imperfect people.
Imperfect people. And my fit is wholly in God. And I am a part of the church. Praise God. But I have found out that often I see the church as I see myself.
That's good.
I'm pretty good about forgiving the church as I forgive myself. If I feel shame or guilt, or like I'm not receiving forgiveness from the Lord, like if I hang on to things, I tend to hang on to things toward the church.
Right.
And I think a lot of people do. I think that unforgiveness toward the church makes us really, really sick. I think it skews our perspective of grace.
That is well said, because as a pastor and as an interviewer, I get a lot of people who tell me how badly the church has hurt them. You're one of the few that has told me it was my own expectation. Because there are, the church, there's a lot of churches out there that, oh my Lord, it's so religious and it's such a painful environment that I get it. But then there's a lot of others that they really were with a beautiful group of imperfect people who had expectations, like you just said, that nobody could meet on the planet, only Jesus could. Would that be accurate for you?
Oh, yeah. And I think that you could go to any group of people and say, let's sit down and talk about this. I have some pointers for you, I've got plenty of opinions about, how church could be done better. But
right.
Because I'm also
You should
human.
start one then.
Thank you. I am in a church plant now, though, and so it's funny because you pray for humility, but we are all just doing the best we know how and trying to follow the Lord. And so my husband and I, we left ministry. He became an attorney, and I went into a Master of Fine Arts program in poetry.
Wow.
And seated myself among artists who are full of desire and not hindered at all to write about it. My husband was hurting a lot after our church experience because there were really and truly some unhealthy things.
Oh, I'll bet.
So he was hurting. He covered that pain by studying so hard
Right.
the law.
Yep. Okay.
And I took the artist's way and studied poetry.
Yeah.
And we were very apart in that time. Still leading in a little church where we went to school. And I shared an office with a young man who was handsome and kind to me. And we had an emotional affair that lasted a couple of months and stopped. And I hid it. I didn't tell my husband. I just thought, we're just going to move on because I don't want to cause him pain.
Right.
And 3 years later, I had just birthed my third son in 3 years. So let's talk about that. I was struggling with anxiety, which having 3 boys in 3 years might do that to someone. I also had a major heart issue in the delivery room and had to have heart surgery.
Really?
And yes, continued to have chest pain after the surgery and went to the Lord over and over again. I know you can heal me. What's up? Why are you not healing me? And he began to say, you know what's in there. And I had taken the secret and heaped up so much shame on top of it that anybody's chest would hurt.
Gotcha.
Because that's what shame does. And I ended up having dreams the same night my husband had dreams that I had something to tell him.
Oh, wow.
He said, I'm sorry to do this, but I had a dream that you need to tell me something. And so I did. I know that sounds cuckoo pants, but that's the real story.
Yeah, I believe you.
And it was very painful. It was very painful. But that is a lot of the way that I learned about unforgiveness toward the church, is that I was just covering my pain.
Right.
Covering my pain, covering my unforgiveness. And as we healed from that affair, it kind of happened in proportion to our forgiving the church.
Wow.
And loving the church and asking that we would be agents of reconciliation within the church.
So good. So now you're finding, well, what you obviously found was that it's never going to be perfect, because church is people, but you can forgive.
That's right.
Now, was it a one-time thing? You guys just kind of forgave them, or is it something you have to practice daily, or what does forgiveness mean to you?
Oh, I do think it's a practice daily thing.
Yeah.
I think it's also a receiving grace thing for myself. So, forgiveness, oh, I mean, I think we have to live there.
Yes.
We live there. It's very humbling
Yeah.
that we pray in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us
Yeah.
as we forgive others.
That's so true. Whenever I do an introduction or whenever I welcome guests at our church, I always tell them this little story. I'll say, often people ask me when they come, I've been hurt at church. Am I going to get hurt at this church if I attend? And I always tell them, yeah. And they kind of go, you're admitting it right off the hop? I go, yeah, because church is full of imperfect people just like the streets, just like the neighborhoods. And to practice this forgiveness, sort of almost be unoffendable, is maybe even a better step, just even before you have to forgive because you're so hurt and you're so upset and you're so angry or whatever, just to say, imperfect people. That's what the love chapter is all about, how to love imperfect people.
Well, and I mean, church is a place of healing too.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's also good to have these great expectations to meet people who are being made into the likeness of Christ. And the reason I brought my Bible up here, is it okay if I do this?
Yes, we like the Bible around
We
here.
love the Bible here. I cannot let this out of my mind that to them God chose to make known how great among the Gentiles are the riches of the glory of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. And that inside every one of us is a mystery.
Yeah.
And the mystery is Christ in us, the
Beautiful.
hope of glory. And I think if we would go into our churches, not saying, you be Jesus to me, but saying, I'm going to be Jesus to you.
Wow.
There's a mystery happening in here. I'm here as a minister of the gospel. And he says he's in me and that hope of glory. So how can I show you the hope of glory?
Wow.
And we live kind of that, it's that upside down kingdom that people talk about all the time.
Yeah.
You move in there to show people Jesus. And I think that we should start in the floor, in those humble places where God meets us, and look for the people who are covered in shame, people who are struggling, and go there and show the hope of glory.
That's beautiful. Wow, our time has already gone by. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it brings hope to so many who are in that same boat. They could really have been hurt, of course, but to forgive and to look to Jesus for the things you look to others for. Even your own spouse. I think married people start looking at something from their spouse that they could never give them. And that's the kind of love only Jesus can give. That kind of identity only a relationship with Him would bring. And then everything else begins to fall in line when you and Jesus are good.
Then you're free to love.
Then you're free to love. Like that old song says, love hurts. You're loving imperfect people, aren't you? Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you.
My guest today is Amber Haines, who wrote this book, Wild in the Hollow, bringing healing to so many who are struggling, going through pain, hurt, heartache, maybe struggling about church or family, etc. I think reading her story will help you to be honest, rise up and deal with it. Let Jesus set you free. I'll be right back.
Devoted, a daily devotional created with you in mind. Easy to read and simple to understand. These 2-minute faith boosters are available in 8 different languages. Watch it on YouTube or have the booklet sent directly to your home. You can also receive Devoted to your email inbox daily. Become inspired as Leon Fontaine shares practical biblical teaching. Devoted is literally at your fingertips. Transform your life with this Spirit Contemporary devotional. Sign up to receive Devoted today.
While I really felt like the interview today was a powerful invite to trust God with our untidy, broken, messed up selves and to learn to walk in forgiveness. If you think you need to have it all together before you can come to church, that's silly. That's like having to take a shower before you even take a bath. The Spirit Contemporary life, it's so crucial that as we conduct ourselves as Christians around people in the world or even around other Christians, we are to be like Christ. It doesn't say we're to be like a religion. It says Christian, Christian. And when you follow Jesus and the stories of Jesus in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he was phenomenal. That everywhere he went, other than to religious, arrogant people, he could be pretty sharp with them. But to everyone else who had failed, to everyone else who was struggling, he was so spiritually alive, loving, and he spoke to them in their language. And he spoke to them with terms that made them feel accepted, even though the people around them had made them feel so low. He made them feel loved, even when others were hating them and despising them. You could tell there was forgiveness in Jesus' eyes when he spoke to any person. That's one of the things I call spirit contemporary. Being spiritually alive with his power, his love, the miraculous flowing through you to others. But then everywhere you go, you are contemporary to the very person you're speaking to. Relevant, real, able to speak a language that gets past the walls they've erected and touches their very heart. That's why Spirit Contemporary is a message that is going around the planet and touching so many people. Today, I want to ask you to make a generous donation of $30 or more to put action to your faith. You're not buying anything, you're sowing into your own future. You're making it possible for others to hear about this Jesus in a spirit contemporary way. And with my heartfelt thanks, I'd like to send you a very special resource offer, as well as my daily devotional. Call right now. You are going to see someone. Their name is going to be written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and for eternity, they'll be with Jesus because of the gift you're giving right now.
We trust that you are being blessed, uplifted, and encouraged in your Christian walk through today's program. As a viewer, you should know that we care about you. We value you greatly and appreciate your prayers. Did you know that Miracle Channel is taking the good news of Jesus Christ around the world through award-winning programs like this? We are actively translating ministry programs into languages like Spanish, French, Italian, and even Russian. We even air on television stations in the Middle East. This means that millions upon millions of people are hearing about Jesus Christ in their language, and it's all thanks to people like you. Considerable expenses are involved, so we need your support, because each person who gives their life to Jesus is absolutely worth the cost. Each is of infinite value to God. You are very important to us. We care greatly about your spiritual growth, which is why we would like to get today's resources into your hands. When you support this program by making a donation, you are not only enriching your walk with the Lord, you are sharing Jesus with someone on the other side of the globe. Your donation transforms lives by reaching literally millions of people with the gospel. Call now and change someone's life today.
Tomorrow, Leon is joined by Holly Wagner as she shares how to fight for your dreams.
Just trusting God in this, and he said, okay. So he wired me up, and then he did the stress test, and when he was done, he said, well, let me tell you that your body, the stress level in your body is as if you're staring a roaring lion in the face.